Hey, happy Halloween, everybody. And as is code equestria tradition around here on Nightmare Night, we've got a Halloween themed review. Now, thanks to the virus that is named after a adult beverage, something on a beach, I never really had anything really planned for this Halloween. That is until I found on Hulu the subject of today's review. Granted, this movie is old. This movie is a classic. And if I'm doing a movie review, it's one of two things. Either it's a really bad train wreck that's interesting because it's a train wreck, or it's a really good movie that I barely remember. But unlike all those other movie reviews, this one I do remember. But I have never truly watched from beginning to end. What's the movie? The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yeah. Me, if I was the weird, macabre, and fandom cultish, had never sat back and watched Rocky Horror before today. Not in full, anyway. I'd seen it in pieces. Most notably, the Time Warp musical number, and maybe the start of the movie, or the opening song. Double feature picture show. I've seen all that, but I've never sat back and watched the entire irreverent classic. Now, granted, you're not going to see any footage for this review, or even a thumbnail. I really don't want to get caught. And this movie is not for the kiddos. Although, strangely quick fact, most cuss words in this movie are the word damn it and gee damn it. There is only one F-bomb in the entire movie. How they managed to pull that off is amazing. Now, most of you of an old enough age know that this movie is the ultimate midnight movie. It is a cult classic. Back before cosplaying became a thing, cosplaying to go see this at your local Cineplex late at night with other Rocky Horror fans was an event. Throwing rice at the screen, toilet paper, calling the lead character Brad Majors an asshole every time he would look for a handshake when he would introduce himself. Memorizing the musical numbers and, of course, the Time Warp dance literally by heart. I believe there's a documentary on the very subject that I'm talking about in the irreverent fandom it had in the 90s as this kind of event before there were event movies. This movie did not do good originally. This movie basically became a classic in spite of itself. But if there is one thing, two things actually, this movie is known for, It's for Tim Curry's knockout performance as Dr. Frankenfurter. And of course, the musical numbers, especially the first half. Here's the funny thing about Rocky Horror as I go into review mode for this movie. The first half of the movie has become literally classic. The first hour is some of the most untouchable cult movie stuff of legend. Mainly because it goes from one endlessly memorable musical number straight to the next. The pacing is insane. By the time you've recovered from the epic opening of Late Night Double Feature, you're already getting the second musical number within the first 3 minutes. And then after that, you get another musical number after that. And then soon, 2 minutes after that, it's the world famous time warp, followed straight up a minute or so later by Sweet Transvestite. It never stops until suddenly, about halfway through the flick, it all of a sudden does. And then, after a nearly 20-minute interlude with no songs whatsoever where the movie gets quote-unquote serious, 3 back-to-back musical numbers and a reprise of the open during the credits closes the show. You might not know about this about me, but I have a strange affinity for musicals, but I have never seen a musical work at such a rapid, almost ADHD on Ritalin pace. This thing goes fast. And here's the funny thing. Godequestria's Dr. Spartan, aka Tyler, just asked me what my favorite musical number of the whole movie was. The funny thing is, I couldn't come up with an answer for him. Because every musical number, outside of one, perhaps, Make You a Man, is a knockout, drag-out, memorable song. Of course, the movie is remembered for Time Warp and Sweet Transvestite. For good reason. Time Warp does get stuck in your head. It is one of the most catchy, infectious Broadway musical tracks that I've ever heard multiple times. Trust me, when this movie was celebrating its 25th anniversary and had a VH1 special where they redid the entirety of the movie's musical numbers, yeah, I could see the power of this thing. Tim Curry is an absolute show stealer. This is practically his movie. Because other than Susan Sarandon playing Janet Weiss and Meatloaf, oddly, who has one scene, one song, which, by the way, is an absolute knockout of a song, by the way, and then he gets promptly axed. Spoilers for a 40-year-old movie, but when I say axed, I mean that in both a subliminal and literal fashion. And then he is never seen from or heard from again. I mean, yeah, the jokes don't land as hard in the modern era. And it's mainly because of its now cult status as a group watch film that the jokes are actually funny listening to them in isolation. Maybe 4 or 5 of the jokes land, especially the one where Curry is essentially telling the same lie to both Fred and Janet using the words and the exact same gag twice. And it's both equally as funny because both of the heroines are naive victims as they're being strung along in this movie of happenstance. All of it is. Even the narrator, you could kind of say, plays into the happenstance itself. All in all, for a nearly 2-hour movie, it's not very often that I say that I was enthralled every minute by a movie and especially by a performance, but I was honest to God mesmerized. To even put words to this movie is nearly impossible. It talks about themes that are normalized almost in today's world about sexual and gender freedom, what it means to be masculine, what makes a man, what makes a woman, whether a relationship lacks fire or spunk, independent thought, making memories, being remembered. Things that are strangely addressed in a weird way in 2020. You could say this movie was strangely pathetic to the issues of the gay and transphobe, playing it 100% not only for the laughs because of the time, but also straight and the reaction that it would normally bring, seeing that Dr. Frankenfurter is looked at as eccentric, crazy, and almost monstrous. Let alone Rocky and Rocky's creation looked at as a monstrous thing as he struggles between the purpose he was created for, essentially being a sex slave, and Janet being kind of his muse of sorts, and every other sideways nut job in the castle. All in all, it's a great, harmless, fun time, and maybe the single most entertaining musical I've ever had the pleasure to watch. Sure, there isn't as much horror in the picture show, but my lord, does that Halloween ending up in a haunted house spooky vibe, but you come out feeling good, feeling great, like you want to dance the night away, just like the occupants of the house. Now, here on Kadic Reviews, when it comes to movies, we work on the old-fashioned 10 scale. And this movie gets a solid 8 out of 10 from me. Although some of the jokes may have aged and some of the subject matter may not be too sticky compared to its original release, where this stuff was looked at as controversial and too offbeat for the normal. This movie kind of now fits into today's culture, but it hasn't lost one bit of its fun or one bit of its musical punch. This is an event movie before there were event movies to be done. A spectacle that must be experienced, not explained. Even I, someone who is a hyper analytic, can't explain this. I'm still kind of floored that it took me nearly 30 years to watch it, but honest to God, I'm glad I did. And maybe if I'm doing a Halloween playlist of sorts, I'll be straight up with you. I'd do the time warp again, and again, and again. And that's why this thing is an addictive cult classic. What are your thoughts on Rocky Horror if you've seen it as an older viewer? If you're a younger viewer that has heard about it but never watched it, I hope this helps drive you in that direction. It's on Hulu right now, and considering in this time of year, in this day of days, it might just be the movie that might satiate your Halloween fix. You're looking for something more weird than scary. I hope you all enjoyed this return to movie reviews, because there will be more. Speaking of reviews, 2K Battlegrounds is up next. Oh, goody. And oh, by the way, next Saturday, New 26 is back. No joke. So, you'll probably get the Battlegrounds review early in the week, while the first review of the first 2 episodes of My Little Pony Pony Life will be coming at the typical New 26 time, around 10:30 Mountain Standard Time. I can't believe we're doing this again. But until next time, I'm Nirvana Sparkle. Don't dream it, be it. Find peace in your own Nirvana. I'll see you later.